Entering the Safe Galaxy Lockbox on PC and console very soon. A new grand prize Lockbox Ship, the World Razer, as seen in Picard Season 2. So, let's take a look at this brand new ship. The World Razer carries with it the pride of the Confederacy. To a people who root their identities in domination, there can be no such thing as self-satisfaction. Joy is torn only from the vanquished. New foes must always be sought and subjugated. The doing of it made a collective spectacle to entice the battered remains of the human spirit to slouch into a semblance of life, animated by hatred of the different. In so doing, the violent nation can create a grand arena of the wilderness. Lay all the bitter fruits of a life of anger at the tree of the eternal other, and cheek the chopping of the forest. The people need not be cared for in this model of state, saving resources that can be fed back into the war machine, fueling the cycle. To captain the pride of such a navy, to wield the axe of spectacle and conquest, is to live as a titan astride history. The survivors and ghosts agree. There is not and will never be a man greater than the Confederate Jean-Luc Picard, nor a ship greater than his. Let's go into the brand new World Razer Temporal Ops Juggernaut. So, this ship is definitely a standout one as far as how it's going to sit as useful ships go in Star Trek Online. So, this ship is going to feature a Commander Tactical Temp Ops Specialist Bridge Officer seat and a Lieutenant Commander Engineering / Command Specialist Bridge Officer seat. So, I'm definitely a fan of that setup for a couple of reasons. For one, I'm somebody who absolutely loves recursive shearing 3, so any ship I can fit it on is a massive win, and even better, the Lieutenant Commander Engineer is shared with the Command specialization, which is great. Engineering bridge officer stations have always suffered from not having as many abilities. You know, they've basically got their unconventional procs, emergency power to weapons on a beam boat, and there's really not a whole lot else. There's a lot less useful abilities for it, so being able to fit in your concentrated firepower 3 is going to be really helpful there. So, let's go ahead and get into the ship details. As always, this is a Tier 6 ship. It's Federation or Federation aligned. Obviously, you can unlock this on KDF characters once you get a Klingon character to level 65 or buy the boost from the Zen store. Pretty standard stats as far as Juggernauts go. Hull modifier of 1.45, shield modifier of 1.15, and a 5-3 weapons layout. So that's going to be similar to the Cygnus, which is another Galaxy variant. Also, quick blurb, this ship will be kit bashable with other Galaxy variants, so if you're not a fan of the World Razer design, fear not. You'll have the Galaxy, you'll have the Cygnus, you'll have the Andromeda, everything except for the Dreadnought variants like the Yamato or the Galaxy X. For bridge officer stations, there are the two I already mentioned. There's also an Ensign Sign seat, a Lieutenant Commander Universal, and a Lieutenant Universal. This is really solid seating to me. I'm a fan of it. It's going to allow you to keep a lot of bridge officer abilities that you really need. It's going to focus in one of two things. I think this thing could be a pretty devastating beam ship. My only problem with that is it's really not going to have the turning for it. This is a big, bulky ship. This is probably going to be the slowest Galaxy variant we have in the game, and that's saying something. So I'm thinking more of a torp setup. You'll be able to fit your Torpedo High Yield 3 on there. You'll be able to have your Cannon Scatter Volley and your Fire at Will in that Universal seat, and you'll be able to fit your Temporal and Command abilities and throw in a lot of unconventional systems procs. For our consoles, what really makes me excited, 5 tactical, 3 engineering, and 3 science. Having those tactical consoles is going to be fantastic. It means you're going to have crits for days. You know, it's why ships like the Vadwar Juggernaut really stand out, because it's the same sort of setup as the Inquiry class, except it's much more tactically focused, and that lends it to being a better cannon scatter volley build. Forward space turn rate, like I said, 7, which is pretty low. 35 inertia, which is basically normal. For our power distribution, it's plus 10 to weapon power, plus 5 to engine power, and plus 5 to aux power. Nothing into shields, but that's not really a big deal. Its console is the Light of Civilization, which we'll get to later. It's got a Juggernaut array, as always, and because it's a temporal ship, it's got molecular reconstruction, and then it's 3 different configurations. Its Starship Mastery package is, following the Juggernaut, so crit chance, crit severity, which is great. Some hull regen, which is alright. Nice little Cat 1 boost to all damage, and then getting into that trait. Its Admiralty ship stats are about what you expect. It's tack heavy, and it's got some extra engineering. But moving on to some of its abilities. First off, we have the World Razer Juggernaut Array. I am very excited to have a Phaser Juggernaut Array. This thing is going to be fun. Do I expect it to do a whole lot of damage? Absolutely not. That's not going to stop it from being a ton of fun to use. Next, we've got the Light of Civilization. So this is the console, and this console, I think, is the most interesting part of this ship. So, activating this console delivers to the foe a tremendous beam of phaser energy, dealing damage over time that improves significantly after the first few moments. If the foe is destroyed, it suffers an instant catastrophic core failure, dealing a large amount of kinetic damage to all nearby foes. So, going to this tooltip, when you activate it, it will deal some amount of phaser damage to a foe for 3 seconds. Which is fine. So this number is reading as 537.9. This is basically the completely unbuffed number. I am pretty sure this isn't how it's actually going to be damage-wise when you're using it. But what gets really interesting is what happens after. After those first 3 seconds, the amount of damage will triple. In this case, going from 537.9 to 1,613.6. That's a lot of damage. So assuming that this can be buffed by, standard Cat 1, Cat 2 boosts, that could do a ton of damage. And I'm assuming right now that it's going to be a 15-second activation, so 3 seconds of the lower damage and then 12 seconds of the upper damage. There's no confirmation on that. I need to go back and watch the stream to see if it got into specifics. And as always, take this with a grain of salt because they might change the console before launch, but I think that console could be a lot of fun. It's kind of like the Stabilized Warp Core, but better, and something that can actually be buffed, which is cool. Moving on to the Starship trait, Cultural Conquest. Activating a weapon firing mode improves damage dealt for a moderate duration, dealing weapon damage to a foe that has affected you with a controlled debuff or DOT effect, and removes one such effect and improves the increased damage to double the base value. Removing negative effects has a 1.5 second cooldown per foe in PvP. So, this one is... The tooltip, weapon firing modes apply some percentage of increased damage for some amount of seconds. Dealing weapon damage to foes heavy debuff, DOT, or controlled improves the bonus to 2x and then removes one such effect from you. This isn't on paper bad, but it should be worth noting that it's all going to be Cat 1. So it's not going to be best in slot. Like, if you were already going after the ship, you probably have some better things. This isn't a trait I would be rushing to throw on the ship, but maybe they'll surprise us and they'll change it to Cat 2. That would be absolutely fantastic. I mean, I think the ship is going to be solid. I think you could get a somewhat good CSV build on this and a moderately good torpedo build on this. In CSV, I don't think it's going to beat the Vadwar Juggernaut or anything. I don't think it would beat even something like the Viridian. In torpedoes, it's not going to beat something like the Sagan or the Section 31 Heavy Battle Cruiser, but it's going to be a fun ship. It's also going to be a very kit-bashable ship, which I like, because those ships don't have a lot of expression. You can repaint them, and that's about it, and then you've got vanity shields. This one, you've got a platform that you can mess around with parts in, and that's really cool. I think it's going to be a fun Space Barbie build. And frankly, I'm happy that we're going to have a really, really, really solid Galaxy for a torque build. Granted, the Ross is also a moderately good one. Like, I haven't had any problems with that build, but this one is definitely going to be a little bit better in my opinion. But we'll have to wait and see. Let me know what you think of the World Razer down in the comments. We will definitely be checking this out in a little bit more detail once the ship comes out. Hopefully I'll be able to get it and do some builds on it and show you what it can do. So, until next time, you have been live with Endeavor Gaming, and remember to keep calm and game on.